Hello, I'm Miss Ashley from Fevo Kids Art Academy, and welcome to another amazing art class. For our princess project today, we are going to be drawing Princess Cinderella. For a list of supplies, check in the description of this video. Let's go ahead and get started. So here is our picture of Cinderella. I'm going to put her aside, and we're going to be taking out our practice paper for our practice draw. Remember, I want you to use that pencil, but I'll be using a Sharpie so you can see my lines. Make sure your paper is vertical, which means up and down. And the first thing we're going to be drawing is an oval. Now, Cinderella's ear is actually covered up by this large earring. So what we do need to do is we are going to start at the bottom of that oval and draw a curved line going down, and we're going to continue that going up and curve in, because this is going to be her cheekbone, and then we curve it back out and stop, because this is part of her forehead. At the top of that curved line we just made, we need to draw another curve, and then another curve, and then one last curve starting on the bottom right, and then we bring this line down back to the earring. All right, we do need to finish the rest of her bangs. Where that part of her forehead meets the cheekbone, we're going to curve out and in, and then we're going to draw a big curve down. So make sure there's quite a bit of that bang right there. Rainbow curve, and another rainbow curve. And then you're going to bring this curve back to the earring. So there is the front of her hair right there. Now she does have a headband, so we do need to draw a slightly curved line. Then we're going to curve like a letter C, rainbow, curve down a little bit lower. And now this is going to be just a little bit tricky, so I recommend watching me first. We're going to curve out and then back in and down. Now, if you need to pause the video and re-watch that, you can go ahead and do so, and you can pause whenever you need to as well. Let's go ahead. We are first going to add a U-shaped curve. We're going to add another curve that connects to the first curve, and then another line, because this is still part of her headband, but we do need to add another curved line going down. And then a straight line, because this is the back of her head with the hair. Now, before we move on to the rest of her body, let's go ahead and work on her face by drawing those eyes. I'm going to start on her right eye here. Slanted line up, and then curve, and curve underneath. Curve, curve down. Now the reason why we have this right here is because this eye is somewhat foreshortened because her head is slightly turned. But let's go ahead and draw those circles for the irises. You'll draw a small circle for the highlight, and then a circle behind for the pupil. Let's go ahead and add those eyebrows. Now, I like to add just a little bit extra underneath by drawing that eyebrow again, because I am going to be filling this with brown instead. And I don't want it to be too thin. We're going to add kind of this curved sideways V for the nose with a slight dot for that nostril. And then for the lips, this is where it can get a little bit tricky because her head is turned and part of her lips are slanted. So I'm going to add a slanted line here, and at the top, curve up and down, up and curve down, making sure that it slightly curves at the end for that smile. And then I'll bring this down back to the slanted line. Then I'm going to draw a curve and a U-shaped curve because her mouth is open in a smile. Now I'm going to bring this line down to a curve so she has her neck. Then I'm going to curve out and down, curve, curve up and then down for her big puffy sleeve. And then we're going to draw that curve again going up off the page, slanted line for the front of her dress. And last but certainly not least, we do need to draw 2 curved lines on her neck. Please try your best to make those curved because it is going around her neck because she is wearing a black choker. For our final draw, we'll add those eyelashes and a little bit more of those details, but we are done with our practice draw. So let's go ahead and move on to our final draw next. Now we're just going to be doing that same step again that we did in our practice draw, only we'll be adding a few more details. If you do need to pause the video because you're still working on Cinderella, no worries, you can always do so. For our final draw, make sure that you have your nice paper or your canvas, whatever you are using, making sure that it is vertical, which means up and down. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw that oval. Remember, Cinderella's ear is hidden behind that earring. We're going to go underneath that oval, draw a curved line down, and then we'll stop. Because then we'll bring that curved line up and then curve out again. So there is part of her forehead and her cheekbone. All right, we're going to go to the top of that line we just created and draw a curve and another curve. Make sure to try your best to make sure that those lines are connected, and I do hope that you are using that pencil as well. Then we're going to curve up and then curve that line back to the earring. Let's go ahead and draw the rest of her hair by curving out and in slightly, big curve out and down, slightly rainbow curve, another slightly rainbow curve, and then curve down to the top of that earring. All right, we need to add this line right here because it is part of her headband. But we are going to draw a letter C, rainbow, rainbow coming down, and now we're going to draw that big line that connects to her neck. Going out and in and down. Make sure you don't go all the way to the bottom of that paper. You'll add a straight line at the bottom of that earring to the neck. You're going to add a U-shaped curve, another U-shaped curve, and then that curved line. Then you'll go to the bottom right and curve down back to the earring. All right, now that we do have a lot of her hair drawn, let's go ahead and work on that face, starting with the right eye, slanted line, curved, and then curve underneath. Remember, her head is tilted, so her eye is foreshortened. So we're just going to draw that curve and then curve again. add that circle for the iris. Add that circle for the highlight. And a circle behind the highlight. That's going to be the pupil. For those eyebrows, I'm going to curve, but I like to add just a little straight line and curve again, just so they are a little bit thicker. Straight line, curve, and curve. Then I'll add that slightly sideways V that is a little bit curved for the nose. Small line for that nostril. And remember, because she is in 3/4 view, her mouth is slanted on the left side. So we do need to draw that slanted line. Up and down, up, curve down, making sure it goes slightly at a curve because she is smiling. And curve down back to the bottom of her mouth. Curve and U-shaped curve. Now before we move on to the rest of her dress, let us give her some eyelashes. I like to make my eyelashes a little bit on the thicker side, but you can make them thin if you want to. I can also add that eyelid, which I will not outline in Sharpie or marker. But now I'm going to come back to where that chin is and bring that curve line down for her neck. Starting here, going to curve down, curve, up, then down, curve up off the page. And then don't forget that slanted line because that's part of her dress. And curve those lines for her choker. Take a look-see at your picture, see if there's anything you may have missed. I could have actually rounded that a bit more, but no worries. That's why we always use a pencil so we can erase. But when you are done with your picture, it should look something like this. Also, before I do move on, if you do want to add anything to your background, maybe you want to add a castle or maybe the pumpkin carriage, that is totally up to you. However, I'm just going to leave my background blank for now. So my picture looks something like this. If you want to take that time to add any of those details, you can go ahead and pause the video. But I am going to be moving on to coloring. I no longer need my pencil, but I may need my eraser for things. So I am going to be taking out, I have these nice permanent markers that are really fine tip. I am first going to use brown. Now I'm not going to be using brown on my entire image. Instead, I'm going to be using brown on where her face is, part of her neck, as well as her shoulders and that hair. But I recommend watching me and then following along because even though she has blonde hair, I'm still going to be outlining it in brown. Because if I do outline it with yellow, it'll be kind of hard to see and differentiate between where the hair starts and ends. So I'm just going through and outlining first her hair. However, do not outline the headband or the earring. So I'm going to make sure to leave that little area alone. I'm going here and here, but I am not going to outline this line. And then I'm going to bring this all the way down, but I'm going to stop where the choker starts, skip over that, continue that line. So go ahead and outline what you need to in brown. in here, part of the neck and stop, hop over the choker, come down, and then slightly down like that. I do still have some parts of that hair, it's right here and here, but this is actually part of the headband, and I'm going to be outlining that in blue later on. I am going to outline the bottom of her eyes with brown. Oh, and also her nose. Now, even though she is blonde, she still has darker eyebrows. So I am going to be using my brown marker just to make sure I've got her eyebrows just a little bit filled in. You don't want them too thick, but you also don't want them too thin. For my advanced students, I recommend trying your best to make sure that the parts of the eyebrow that's closer to the bridge of your nose is thicker, and then it goes thinner. And that should be it for brown. Now, I am going to be using light blue to outline her dress. Also, her headband and earring. But do not outline that choker quite yet. You can also outline only the iris of her eyes. So I'm not going to outline the pupils. Alright, so there's that. If you find that maybe you've got some pencil lines showing through, you can easily just take that eraser and erase any of those pencil lines. Alright, I am going to be switching to black now. So I'm just going to grab my black Sharpie. I am going to outline that highlight and the pupil and outline the top of her eye with those eyelashes. And those areas you can fill in as well, except for the highlights. So the eye should look like this. And her choker, which is black. All right. Almost everything has been outlined except for her lips. Now, Cinderella has some nice pink lips. And so I'm just going to go for my standard regular flamingo pink Crayola marker. And I'm just going to outline that. So everything on your picture should be roughly outlined. But I am going to be filling in those lips with my flamingo pink. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started on her hair first because that is one of the larger areas. I'm going to be using my yellow Mr. Sketch marker. The reason why I really like to use the Mr. Sketch is because of that nice broad chisel top, because now this way I can outline her hair. And luckily, since that brown is permanent marker, it shouldn't spread onto that yellow. But I'm just making sure to outline. And once I finish one section, I can go ahead and fill it in with those long strokes. All right. So I'm just making sure to fill that in. Really try to see if you can get all of those white spots. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky with yellow. It is easy to miss any areas of those paper, of that paper, excuse me, which is why I like to do those nice long strokes. And then do the rest of her hair. Nice still outline. And fill that in. I fill in top to bottom. And I'm still checking to see those white spots. Once again, it's easy to miss using that yellow. All right. While I have my Mr. Sketch markers out, almost said Sketcher, I am going to be taking my black and coloring that choker. And filling that in. All right, I am actually going to be switching to my pack of bold and bright colors, Crayola. I really like the colors in this one because they have more colors that seem princess-like. In fact, I'm actually going to take my red here and just outline some of that lip. Just because once I filled it in with that pink, it did get a little bit lost. But there are two specific blues, or excuse me, there's one blue in here that I do like to use for a dress. Now, originally, Cinderella's dress was actually more of the silverish blue, but it was later on, I believe because of merchandising reasons, that they changed her dress to being light blue. But it might be silver now because Elsa's dress is blue. But in the original film, her dress is more silvery. However, we are going to be sticking with her standard blue dress. Now, I am using Blue Lagoon from my pack, and I am going to be coloring her sleeves. Now, I like to outline, even though these aren't broad chiseled like Mr. Sketch. I'm going to outline her sleeves and then fill that in. You can still use those nice long strokes using your Crayola markers. And just like we did with the hair, make sure you are getting all of those white spots. And same with this sleeve. But make sure you don't color this area of the dress because that does need to be just a little bit darker. And you can use those nice long strokes, top to bottom. Also, I am going to be using this blue for her eyes. So I'm just going to very carefully fill in those eyes. actually going to go back to my Mr. Sketch markers because there is this light blue that smells really good, and use it for the rest of her dress. Do have a few more steps with our markers, which I'm going to use my my light blue Mr. Sketch for the headband. And if you need to switch it around to make it easier to color, you can go ahead and do that. Just make sure you are getting all of those white spots. Getting as close as you can, making sure not to have any white spots. All right, almost done with that headband. Cannot forget the earring though, that is covering her ear. So I will go back to that blue lagoon that I used earlier. All right, so that should be our last marker step. However, if you have a background, make sure to add that background in. I didn't add a background because my background is super simple. I'm just going to add some willow leaves behind her. And how to do that is I'm going to get my purple Mr. Sketch marker. I'm going to draw some lines behind her. I'm going to try my best to make them as straight as possible. If they're not perfectly straight, that's okay. But I'm actually going to turn this around, and what I am going to do is I am going to be drawing what kind of looks like hearts and fill them in. Because these are the leaves to our willow tree. Just like we did with all of Cinderella using that marker, make sure you are filling in any white spots. And make sure they get progressively bigger as you get closer to the top, which has become our bottom now. You can have them close together or far away. Now, if you don't have the same background as me, no worries. You just keep coloring it how you would like to. And still keep checking for those white spots. Take that moment to add those leaves. You want to make some a little bit smaller than others, or maybe even bunched up together. That's okay too. But just go ahead and add those leaves. And if you need to press pause on the video, you can go ahead and do so if there's any part of your picture you are working on. So I'm just drawing those hearts, filling it in. And there we go on that side. Still adding those hearts. And just almost done with those leaves. Make sure you are filling in those hearts. All right, So there are my leaves. I'm just going to make sure to turn over Cinderella so she is right side up. And now I'm going to put my markers away and take out my chalk pastels. Now I recommend using the big set of chalk pastels. And the first thing we're going to be doing is we are going to be coloring her face. Now Cinderella is fair and blonde. So what we do need to do though is we are going to be doing a little bit of mixing. We're going to be using just a little bit of this nice peachy color. Now you may have noticed that she's missing her eyelids. I will add that back in with my colored pencils. So there's that, but I am also going to get my slightly tan and add just a little bit on top. Now I don't need a whole lot of this. Remember, Cinderella is very blonde and fair. I'm going to take 1 or 2 fingers and blend that chalk dust onto her face, neck, and chin, wherever we see that color. And try your best to get as close as you can. If you did get some of that chalk dust on areas you didn't want, for example, like her choker, you can always take an eraser and erase that dust right off, but do be careful. Let's finish off her face by first adding some shading. Now, I recommend for this next step that you get a paper towel and you cut it in 4. So right now mine's in half. I'm going to take my scissors and cut that in half. So we've got 1/4 of a piece. Because I'm going to take that and put it on my finger. We're going to take a darker brown. So I wouldn't go too dark because remember she's still fair. I'm going to actually take this brown here, just run my finger, and then I'm going to add some shading underneath her chin on that neck and here as well. Now the nice thing about this method is I feel like it's a little bit more accurate. You don't have to get so much chalk dust on the face. Also, we are going to add just a little bit above her eye. If you need a little bit more, you can just easily brush your finger with a paper towel on it. I like to add a little bit underneath the nose as well as right here. But make sure to get it underneath the chin. You can use that same paper towel. I didn't use much of it. I am going to get pink because since her lips are pink already, I'm going to be using pink for her cheeks. But make sure you don't get too much on it because we're going to just get a little bit of pink and go in circular motions on her cheeks. Remember, you don't need a whole lot for that blush. We don't want her to look like a clown. And if you have any extra dust, you can easily just tap it off. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some shading to the hair. Now, obviously, as you can see, I don't have a yellow chalk pastel, but also yellow wouldn't show up since her hair is yellow. So we actually do need to get that brown again. And we're going to be adding some shading here. And here. And just underneath that hair. And also behind here. Look how nice and soft we are going. We want to make sure that we're really nice and gentle with our pictures. Just kind of try and be princess-like as you are coloring. We do want to add that shadow just to give Cinderella's hair a little bit more emphasis and a bit more dimension as well. All right. Now, we also do want to add some highlight. Now, with the highlight, you actually do want to pick up your chalk pastel, and you do want to go along the top of those bangs and the top of her hair along there. So you should be able to see that white. However, it is pretty harsh, so you can easily go back to your paper towel and just blend those areas. If you have a lot of dust, you can easily just tap it right off. Now for that background, I'm going to be using purple since I used purple for the leaves. However, I am going to be changing it from pink to purple. So I'm going to pinch and pull up here very gently. And with purple, since Cinderella is a very light colored princess, meaning she's got lighter colors of yellow, light blue, her skin tone is really fair, we want to make sure that we go easy on that purple and pink. So I'm going to take that purple and take it down just a little bit. Oop, almost got some right there. If you do get a little bit on her hair, you can easily take your eraser and try your best to erase whatever you can. But after I'm done with the purple, I'm going to be adding pink by pinching and pulling. And you can mix that purple and pink together. All right, and I'm going to take 2 fingers and blend that background. Now, as you're blending, you may find that you are getting just a little bit of that purple on her hair, which unfortunately I did to my Cinderella. No worries though, you can easily grab that eraser and erase that purple that gets on her hair. And make sure to blend as close as you can to her dress. All right, so I have blended that background. If you did unfortunately get some purple on that background, or excuse me, onto her hair, you can go back and erase it, but you may need to go back over and add some white chalk pastel again. You can also get a paper towel and try and rub that off. Now you can also add some shading to and highlighting to her dress, so I'm going to add that white. But if you do end up adding some glitter glue like I am, this will actually just end up coming off. So I will add it, but I do also want to add light blue to my choker right here. And take my paper towel and blend. Now, if you are done with your entire background and everything else, you can go back to Cinderella and add any of those details that you may feel are missing. So for example, I can add a nice eyelid to above her eye. I can also add some shading to where her teeth would be, so it's not just straight up white, but we've got a little bit of dimension to those teeth. But if you are done and you're ready to call it good, you can leave it as is, or you can add some glitter glue and gems to your picture, which I am going to be doing right now that my picture is complete. So, making sure everything's nicely blended and done, I'm going to go ahead and put my chalk pastels away, and I am going to be taking out my gems and glitter glue. All right, for my gems and glitter glue, the first thing I'm going to be doing is using my glitter glue. Now, it is nighttime, so I want to make it super sparkly outside, so I am going to just take some glitter glue that's silver, and I'm just going to add some glitter, not to all the leaves, but just some of them, because I can easily go back over and add more, but I do want to spread that glitter around. And with glitter glue, I feel that less is more. So once you've added that, you can take your paintbrush and just dab that silver sparkle on those leaves. I like to make sure that they're not on every part of the leaves. It's a little inconsistent, but I'm just dabbing. So right now it looks a little bit wet, but once it dries, those sparkles really do pop out. All right, and there's my glitter. I also have blue glitter that I can add to her dress. Just make sure to spread that glitter. The thicker it is, the longer it will take to dry. All right, so I have some pink glitter, which I'm going to use for her lips. And I only need just a little tiny bit. I'm going to take my brush and spread that glitter. I know it's a little bit tricky to see, but there is glitter on her lips. All right. I do want some more glitter on her dress, so I'm going to take my light blue. I'm going to get some glitter on here. Now remember, if you added chalk pastel, it may come off. I'm going to take my medium brush and just spread that glitter around by tapping and dabbing. So I'm not brushing back and forth, because if I do that, it tends to just pick up the glitter and it'll be more on your paintbrush than on your actual picture. Also, unfortunately with the glitter glue, it does tend to try and take off that marker, so do be extra careful. You do have to work kind of speedy quick. So there is my glitter on the dress, and I'm just going to move on to the rest of the dress. Also, you can use it on the headband as well. So I'll get just a tiny, or excuse me, just a bit, run that right there. And I'm going to tap. Really try and spread that glitter glue. I find that when using glitter glue, it works a bit better with Mr. Sketch markers. It tends to not pick up the marker that much, but with Crayola, it tends to really try and pick that color up. All right, I am now going to be adding some gems. I'm done with my glitter glue. I'm going to put that aside, and now I'm just going to bling up my Cinderella. I've got some nice pastel colors here. I'm just going to add one to her earring here. But I can also add some to her headband. Just to make it look a little bit more unique. But I am also going to take some of my smaller ones and add some stars in the background. Again, I wouldn't go too heavy on those gems and glitter. You don't want it to be too distracting from the actual picture. So I'm just going to take a few of these smaller gems so they look like stars in the background. Okay, you can add as many as you want or as few, or you don't even have to add gems if you don't want to. Just make sure that they don't stick to your finger. again, have fun with your Cinderella picture. Get as creative as you would like. And that is it for my picture of Cinderella. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had a lot of fun learning how to draw Cinderella. Please post your pictures online. We would love to see them. And we will see you next time. Bye.